Hey, welcome students. All right, so in this video I want to go ahead and summarize what thermochemistry is, try to give you that big idea of what this section's all about. And essentially what this boils down to is this idea of heat. So remember here, we break this down on thermo. Thermo here is dealing with heat. And chemistry, we're looking at the interactions, the things that cause that heat. So what this means here is that either heat is going to be generated on the one hand because it's a product of the reaction, or it's going to be consumed or required by the reaction. And so here this is going to be generated or it's going to be consumed. And respectfully here, generated here means this is going to be a product. And if it's going to be consumed, this is going to be a reactant. Now, we had already explored this concept in a previous section of the course in one of the previous chapters, but here we're going to kind of look at this a little bit closer because some of the reactions that are going to be involved in this section are going to need heat to be applied. And that essentially for us is allowing us to then look at some concepts here. Concepts such as exothermic, and then the other one is going to be endothermic. Okay, and exothermic here is going to be those reactions that are going to release heat. And so this is essentially going to be the section up here where the heat is the product. And in the other one, the endothermic here, the heat is required, and this is going to be like this. It requires heat, and this is because this particular heat is serving as one of the reactants. And in the next sections, we're trying to build the argument here because there is this one big, huge equation that we're going to be looking at overall that involves several different concepts from other chapters. But one of them here, when we talk about thermochemistry, we're looking at that heat, and heat is going to be represented with a couple of variables. And the very first variable that you're going to be looking at here in terms of the overall product is that heat for us is going to be represented by little q. It's also going to be represented by a delta H. And so these often are used synonymously throughout this section. But what we want to make sure that we do, though, is we talk about this and refer to it so that you can actually get an idea of what's really going on within this section of of chemistry, known as thermochemistry. So we may use previous reactions that we've used in other sections, especially like if we looked at some reactions involving an acid and a base. There were some release of heat for some of them, and others may have felt cold to the touch. And so both of those were general examples of exo and endothermic reactions. And so the idea from us, though, is to make sure that we look at all of this so that we kind of put it together to make our lives a little bit easier when we look at thermochemistry. Now, the last thing that I want to leave you here with is going to be, how does this work? How does it go from a heat being generated or heat being consumed? So the last principle that I want to leave you here is, how does this heat transfer, or how does it move? So the movement of heat is always going to be like what we've heard with other things like gases and water, and when you're looking at osmotic scenarios, and that is that you're always going to go from a high concentration of heat. So I'm going to put this in brackets here. This is always going to go to a lower concentration of heat. And so the object that has the higher concentration of heat, or that's higher in thermal heat, either indicated by a Celsius, Fahrenheit, or a Kelvin temperature, it will be then transferred over to the lower heat. And we'll explore all of that here in this unit. But this is the general idea. This is the big idea of thermochemistry, and we're going to go through here in the next couple of videos and kind of break this down for us. I am going to be a little bit more efficient on how we do it, so I'll try to kind of condense everything so it highlights what we're going through in this section, and that way we maximize our efforts. So if you haven't already done so, go ahead and subscribe and keep learning, watching, and we'll see you in the next one.